What type of access do you prefer and why?
Well, it's really easy. I prefer complete access because as a teacher for over 40 years, a practitioner closing in on 50 years, so with all this experience and seeing clinicians around the world in workshop settings, when groups used to come around the world, as you know, to our office, and we watched them in 2-day courses perform and do things, we noticed that everybody, endodontist and well-trained general dentist alike, always did significantly better when they open the tooth up. Now, the access needs to be appropriate. It needs to be anatomically driven. And as I'll talk about a little bit later, not too big, not too small, just right. And of course, we can debate about that. What's too small, what's just right. But the thing is, when we have small access cavities, as I said earlier at the whiteboard, it's much harder for clinicians to find these orifices. They can't really see fractures down the axial walls and read their extent of propagation, especially the ones that start to go below the orifice a little bit. So we have visual problems here, as I mentioned, leaving large amounts of roof or inter-roof between systems of mesial and distal roots. You can trap tissue post-treatment. We can see sealer in these areas. Sealers, a lot of them discolor with time, and in the aesthetic zone with a high smile line, teeth can discolor. So these are just needless complications, and if we just focus on getting it off, the roof, get the roof off, we're going to be able to look into these things, see the axial walls, see where the aberrant, hidden, and previously missed orifices were or are, and it's just going to give you more control, more confidence. Looking ahead, you want files just to slide effortlessly down these internal smooth axial walls right into orifices. Looking ahead, you want your shaping files to come in unencumbered, not having coronal interferences. And then, of course, looking ahead to disinfection and filling root canal systems. What armamentarium are we planning to use? And can we get that armamentarium in there properly based on the access? And I think you're going to talk a little bit about
I have a comment.
Some of the inherent costs associated, because you just can't go out and do this access and have really much success at all unless you have the appropriate technology. Most dentists around the world can do that kind of an access.
Yeah, this is quite obvious to everybody, but there's an old expression I've loved to use over the decades: start with the end in mind. So before we just start beating to death, is it the orifice directed, the ninja, or the complete? I already declared what my choice was regardless, the exception being caries. We should be thinking about the restoration. So before I ever started a root canal, I had to ask myself, okay, I'm going to be doing a series of procedural steps. It's going to eventuate in this kind of a result. Who's next? And what do they have left? And what would make their life easier? And so we need to be speaking and implying coronal buildups, matrix bands, Toffel-Meyers, keeping the field dry. So be thinking about how you're going to restore the tooth before you ever start your access, because they all hook together conceptually into the result.
You know, I've heard you say a lot, and I never really, it seemed kind of abstract to me. I heard you always say not too big, not too small, the appropriate size, that the anatomy dictates the size, visualize the size that you think the access cavity should be, and then make it 20% smaller so that you can expand. But I was like still thinking, okay, so if you're looking at the tooth and you're supposed to visualize the size of the access cavity, how thick am I supposed to visualize the side walls? You know, like I didn't really get it until just recently when I was talking to you, that once you find the orifices on the pulpal floor, that is the connect the dots. That is the size of the access cavity.
And that'll be the smallest size of the access cavity is on the pulpal floor, where the orifices come off the floor and move through roots. So then you want a little convenience form. So you might have a little flare, a little taper. Some walls you can leave them undercut because it doesn't matter. but you do want convenience. So that's the smallest dimensions
When
on
you
the
say
pelvic
flair,
floor.
you don't mean just your own personal style. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you might. Well, probably a lot of our dentistry is our personal styles.
Well, then I was thinking, okay, so, but you can't see the orifices before you start working on the tooth. So you have to visualize in your mind where they might be based on your imaging, I guess, and just your knowledge of anatomy, which then explains why someone would be able to do an orifice-directed access, I'm thinking, because they actually are visualizing the orifice is about right there. So at first, this was all kind of abstract to me, and I only just recently got it that probably it takes experience, but you can visualize where the orifices are going to be through the tooth that you've even started cutting.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's what dentists are doing, and then they're making it a little bit smaller because they'll probably have to then enlarge it.
Once you fall through the roof, assuming there was a chamber, because a lot of times in mineralization you don't really have a pulp chamber, but then there's color and texture and all these things that you can see with your eye with magnification. Once you fall into the pulp chamber, you can start de-roofing, and boom, there's an orifice. Well, then you begin to triangulize. You might find something over here, and you see a cusp tip over here, and the walls of the tooth are out here, and here's a cusp tip. You're on the cusp tip. We start, boom, here's this one. Then you start to make a triangle. So anyway, once you get into the pulp chamber, it will tell you and lead you directly to the orifices. So I always said access cavities are anatomically driven. Mm-hmm. It's not a school of thought. It's not Ruddle versus the AA discussion forum where one guy thinks he's Houdini. It's not that kind of stuff at all. It's like convenience form, looking ahead to the restorative effort. What tools are you going to be bringing in, looking ahead to shape, to do your 3D cleaning, and then to do the obturation itself.